Hi, my name is Bill Bliss, and I'm the platform architect for Microsoft Teams, and one of the original founding members of the Microsoft Teams team. Today, I'm going to talk about how you can build modern enterprise-grade collaboration solutions using Microsoft Teams. Here's what we're going to talk about today. First, I'll talk a little bit about digital disruption, digital transformation, and the digital feedback loop. Second, I'll briefly discuss the capabilities of the Microsoft Teams platform. Many of you have heard this before, so I'll make that quick. Third, over the past year or so, our team has built a rich collection of ready-to-deploy apps that we call the Microsoft Teams app templates. These apps were created based on what our customers told us they needed as part of their digital transformation journeys. I'll go through those briefly. Lastly, and since this is a technical session, I thought it would be fun and interesting to look at two of these apps under the hood. The first one is Quick Answers, and it's designed to quickly find and pass on answers to common questions. The second one is Request a Team, and it's a ticketing and workflow system for creating new teams for companies that want more control over the team creation process. We believe digital is the fourth industrial revolution. The digital revolution is expected to disrupt organizations and how we live just as steam, electricity, and IT did. For example, steam revolutionized transportation. Electricity revolutionized both work and life. In the digital age, we are moving from transactional systems and systems of record to systems of intelligence. What does it mean to say we're in the middle of the fourth industrial revolution? What's different about it? One is that we're moving from an old world where information was scarce or hard to find to a new world that is information abundant and easy to find. Similarly, static networks of people, products, and organizations are giving way to dynamic networks. Siloed productivity is evolving to collective value creation as collaboration becomes far simpler. Customers are becoming fans or brand ambassadors. Instead of focusing on planning ahead, the idea of experimenting, learning, and responding rapidly is taking shape. Last but not least, we are moving from transactional systems and systems of record to systems of intelligence. The organizations who are embracing digital transformation are reaping real, tangible rewards. Organizations are finding efficiencies, lowering costs while having higher return on investment, deploying products to market faster, and getting the opportunity to innovate more. Here are some numbers that illustrate what organizations are saying. On the positive side, 91% of business leaders see digital transformation as a way of sparking innovation and finding efficiencies. 68% say digital transformation is increasing profits. On the negative side, 85% say they must offer digital services or become irrelevant. 64% of business leaders say they have less than 4 years to complete a digital transformation or they may go out of business. And all of these questions were answered before the COVID-19 pandemic. Recently, Satya Nadella said that companies have completed 2 years of digital transformation in just 2 months. Microsoft as a company is going through the same digital transformation. When I started my career at Microsoft, we designed, built, produced, and shipped a product, and then customers bought it. More accurately, IT bought it and deployed it, and only then could customers use it. For us, shipping was the end of the cycle and we started all over again, with only indirect information from customers on whether the software we built was being used or how well it worked. Now, with cloud-based software such as Teams, we have a virtuous cycle of continuous innovation and customer feedback. More generally, we see Microsoft's digital transformation divided into the 4 pillars you see here. Engage your customers. We think of this as leveraging our technology to change the way our customers talk to their customers. Customer engagement begins with a thorough understanding of customers enabled by our ability to collect data representing a 360-degree view of the customer, which we then analyze and turn into predictive power that can be used to constantly deliver personalization at scale, wherever, however, whenever the customer prefers. Empowering our employees to help us transform digitally is all about enabling us, to be more agile and productive. Successful businesses use the power of mobility to support employee productivity and collaboration while mitigating the risks that come with providing freedom and space to employees. In this way, managing security doesn't have to come at the expense of productivity. At Microsoft, we're thinking about investments in automation that make us more efficient and smarter, not just in IT, but across the company. For us, that means doing things like moving from 3-year licensing and packaging models to subscription models, along with much more frequent and agile updates to our cloud-based products and services. So, when we talk about optimizing our operations, we're talking about streamlining processes, removing unneeded steps, making connections, and moving fast. The last area of digital transformation relates to transforming products and services and business models using digital content. Consider this. If every company was effectively a digital or a software company, how would the nature of their products and their overall business model shift? Would their gross margins shift from things to types of services delivered because of digital technology? With this in mind, we want to transform our products in ways that create new opportunities for our customers and create opportunities for our customers to create new opportunities for their customers. We want to do things like help the company transition from licensed revenue to usage and consumption models, track and analyze daily, weekly, and monthly active users, incentivize the sales force and partners on products and services used by the customer instead of products and services sold. Now, those 4 pillars do not exist in a vacuum. By putting data and intelligence in the middle and connecting everything together, we can create what we call the digital feedback loop. By empowering our employees to engage with customers, we can transform the products to serve them better and optimize our operations to do so more efficiently, quickly, and effectively. This is an overview of the Teams platform. Basically, you can think of it as a set of capabilities. The first one, our flagship feature, is tabs. Basically, that's a big HTML canvas to host your UI. The second one is bots, which enable you to create smart chat skills for your users to take advantage of. The third one is message extensions. That allows you to share rich cards with other people. So when you're composing a message, you can actually, behind the scenes, query a database and create a rich representation of data from any kind of system you like. Next, there's message actions. This is a way to take action on an existing message, to use the contents of the message to prime the pump for something else, either to transform it in place or to kick off a task. The next one is task modules, which is one of my favorite features because I designed it. And that is a way of creating dialog boxes for tasks. Task modules let you open up a dialog from bot cards or tabs. When you need to do a little form entry, a lookup, or keep a one-on-one interaction out of a channel, pop open a dialog. And last but not least are notifications. And these are ways for your application to get your users' attention. You can use Toast, app mentions, or just posting to a channel, and then users will see what you want them to see from your application. Now, when you publish an app, you have a number of choices. You can publish to the store, and then everyone can take advantage of it. You can publish it to your tenant app catalog, and then your organization's employees can use it. And lastly, you can publish it just to a single team or just a few teams so that they can take advantage of it. So what exactly is a Teams app? The capabilities of an app that I just talked about are defined as metadata in a JSON file, which is then packaged with app icons into an app package. During the development process, developers sideload the app package for testing. Once it's done, it can either be submitted through AppSource to appear in the Teams App Store and on the AppSource website, or uploaded by the administrator into the tenant app catalog. The screenshot at the bottom is Microsoft's app catalog. So what are these Microsoft Teams app templates? Well, the first thing to understand is that they are not sample apps. These are production-ready apps, and they are ready to be deployed on Azure. There's no code needed. You don't actually need to know anything about code to deploy them. But if you want, all the code is up there on GitHub. All the instructions are there, including the architecture, installation scripts, etc. And last but not least, I think you'll see why, in our opinion, these apps are great examples of digital transformation, creating a virtuous feedback loop among customers, employees, processes, and products, with data and intelligence in the middle. Celebrations is a Teams app that allows team members to celebrate birthdays, work anniversaries, or any other recurring events. It allows people to create their own events and then they can specify where they want the notifications for these events to be sent. And this allows team members to feel noticed on their special days. The Company Communicator app is one of the first apps that we created. We did it because our customers said, we want to be able to use Teams for sending out broadcast announcements. For example, you could use Teams for things like announcing a new initiative, new employee onboarding, or any other kind of organizational announcement, instead of using email, like most companies do today. So what we did is create an app for corporate communications teams and other authorized users to create messages, collaborate on them before they're sent, have a review and approval process, and then send the announcement out over Teams. The FAQ Plus bot is one of our most popular apps. We created it because you would think that a bot is a great way to do Q&A, and that's true, except if the bot doesn't have the answer in its database, then it fails, and then people stop using it. So what we said, okay, what can we do to fix that? Well, we built a bot where you can ask it a question, and if the answer is in the database, then of course you'll get that answer. But if an answer isn't there, you can ask for a human to look at it, and then that message gets posted with a special team with people who have volunteered to answer these types of questions. They answer it, and then the person who asked it gets their answer. Lastly, the answer also gets added to the knowledge base. The HR support bot is a lot like the FAQ bot, except that it's been tailored to support human resources teams. Like the FAQ bot, you ask a question, and if it knows the answer, then it will give you it. It has special knowledge of HR support policies and so forth, so it will send links to those if that's appropriate. There are a few other special features for HR support teams that aid in answering and addressing HR issues. Using the HR support bot, HR teams can partially automate the processes for supporting team members in their organizations. The SharePoint List Search app is a great way to interact with SharePoint lists. SharePoint lists are great for storing information, but they can be awkward to use for team collaboration. Without this app, if I want to share information from the list with someone, I have to navigate to the list, find the right list item, and then copy-paste a link to it. When that person receives it, when they click on it, they have to navigate to the SharePoint list in a new browser window. That is an awful lot of context switching. So what we said is, wouldn't it be cool if you could directly search for information in a SharePoint list and insert the information from that list as a formatted card directly within a conversation? You don't have to navigate to the SharePoint list itself, and you can get value from SharePoint lists with less complexity and fewer clicks. The Custom Stickers app is a way for teams and organizations to create their own sets of custom stickers and GIFs. We believe that self-expression is a healthy part of team culture, which is why we invested so heavily in it as part of Teams. The default set of stickers and GIFs can be extended by an individual, but there's no way to do it as a group or as an organization. So we created this app for organizations and teams to be able to collaborate on their own sets of self-expression content, GIFs and stickers and images. The Icebreaker bot is based on a bot we created when we noticed that as the team started to get larger, there were a lot of people that had never met each other. So it randomly pairs two people up every week. It coordinates with their calendars, and then they get to meet each other offline, and it keeps track of who's met whom. It's a great way for people, especially in larger teams, to get to know each other. The Scrum Status bot is a simple bot that can be used to coordinate asynchronous stand-up meetings in development teams. Instead of having to get together in a physical location at a particular time, the bot can coordinate the process of gathering individual status reports, what they're working on, where they're blocked, etc., typical stand-up things. Everyone enters their own status, and then a couple hours later, or by the end of the day, or what have you, everyone can see what everyone else has been up to. The Crowdsourcer bot is another question and answer bot, but this one has a twist. It's designed to be used in the context of a team. The way it works is you ask a question, and of course, if the answer is in the database, then you'll see it. There are also some tools for keeping the questions up to date, updating them, deleting them, etc. The crowdsourcing part kicks in if you ask it a question that doesn't have a satisfactory answer. You can ask the team to help you, and when they do, their answer is recorded and put into the database. The Expert Finder bot is interesting because it's kind of a hybrid between Azure Active Directory and SharePoint. You search for a person in your organization that has a certain skill, a certain interest, or went to a particular school. Since a lot of this information isn't typically available in Active Directory, there's a secondary table that's kept in sync with Active Directory where this information is stored. So users can update their profile information and populate it with this type of data so that other people in the organization can use it. The Book a Room bot is a bot that you can use to quickly find an available conference room for a meeting starting at the current time for 30, 60, or 90 minutes. The Attendance bot is a Power App that runs inside a Teams tab. It's used for recording presence and attendance at certain types of events, for example, corporate training events and so forth. You can edit your presence or attendance for up to 30 days in the past, and then managers or instructors can see summary reports from Power BI. Associate Insights is a Power App that's designed to be used by frontline workers, gathering information from customers at the point of contact. Information regarding sentiment, positive or negative, feedback on the product or the company, and in general whether they're happy with the product or the company. This information can then be aggregated in a Power BI report for an analysis by managers. The Incentives app is an interesting one. We found that a lot of our customers have employee programs for, say, training and change management, and they want to be able to track and incentivize participation. This app does just that. The admin defines things like the skills and the activities we want you to engage in, and how many points you get when you do participate in them. And then employees use the app to track their progress and to enter completion of the skills activities, and then to see their progress towards their goals. Open Badges is a Teams app that allows users to earn digital learning badges and then share them with others. It integrates with a third-party badging company called Badger, so users can see their badges in their Badger profile and allows them to participate in lifelong learning journeys. The Group Activities app makes it easy for team owners to create activity groups, populate them with users, and then associate a set of activities with those groups. Users see what groups they've been assigned to, and they can also optionally get reminders for completing group activities. Remote Support is an app that coordinates support requests between the people who have problems they need help for and an internal support team that is responsible for handling those requests, assigning, prioritizing, and resolving them. Incident Reporter, as you might expect given its name, is a way to manage incidents completely within Microsoft Teams. There is an automated way to capture an incident, to configure the data associated with the incident, and to send stakeholder notifications. In short, it's an end-to-end incident tracking solution. Now you've seen almost all the app templates, but if you were looking closely, you may have noticed that there's two of them that we skipped, and that's because we're going to look at these two in more detail. Let's start with the Quick Responses app template. Here are the actors in our story. Adele Vance is a retail manager for Contoso. Isaiah Langer is a sales rep for Contoso. Adele was traveling on business and met someone from a Canadian company who asked whether her company could place an order with Adele. Adele wasn't sure how this worked, so she set up a chat message to Isaiah to ask him if he knew. Hey Isaiah, what's our policy again with respect to taking orders from customers outside the US? Specifically, can I accept such an order? Isaiah thought that the answer might be in the Quick Answers app that Contoso IT installed a while back for the US sales team to use. So he looks it up and pastes the answer into the chat with Adele. He searches for international orders. And there it is. He clicks on it. And there's the answer. And he sends it back to Adele. Adele thanks Isaiah for the answer. Adele hadn't seen Quick Answers before, but thought that was kind of cool. She decides to add one of her own for a question that she's asked a lot, whether retail store staff are paid extra for working on holidays. She clicks on the icon and clicks on the plus sign. Your responses. And there it is. And she's done. A little while later, Adele also decides to suggest an answer for Contoso. Now let's go back to Isaiah's machine. Isaiah is in the general channel of the US sales team, and he can see that a notification has been posted by the Quick Answers bot, that a new suggestion has been posted by Adele Vance. He can actually approve it, reject it, or chat with Adele if he wants to clarify some of the details right here. Looks good to him, so he approves it. And here, he has a chance to edit it in line. And now this answer is in the database. Now that you've seen how the Quick Responses app works from a user perspective, let's see how it works from a technical perspective. Let's take a little bit of a closer look at what's going on with the bot. On the right, you see Microsoft Teams. The app, the Quick Answers app, is loaded, and on the left, you haven't seen this before perhaps, is the ngrok debugger. Now, ngrok is what I mentioned earlier, is the thing that forwards requests from my app that's running on my local machine to and from the internet. But the cool thing, one of the cool things about ngrok is that it gives you this debugger. It lets you see a log of what's going on, everything that's sent to and from your bot. Okay, so let's do that. Let's actually use the message extension. I'm going to search for a company response. You'll see some things on the left. We'll come back to this in a second. And like I'm going to type international. And you see the results on the right, and we're going to stop right here. So make this a little bit bigger. This is what was sent first. And this is the initial run query. And then second came, I guess, another initial run. And then there's the search text. This is what I typed in the search query. And this is what the bot sent back. That's the information that is then received by Teams and formatted and shown in this list here. So that's basically a little bit more about how the bot works. Let's take a closer look at the task module. So to invoke it, as you recall, we've got Teams on the right here. We click on the message icon, the envelope icon, and we click on the plus button. We're going to do company responses. And now you see the results. So let's look at the code for this. So as I mentioned earlier, this is in the client app. So here you see the source code for the client app. And if you recall, I mentioned that it's built in React. And so you see the API for delivering the data, things like the company responses, the resources, user responses, all the stuff that shows up here. And then this is the UI that for everything that you see over here. For basically, it's a React web app. Now, the other interesting thing, let's take a look at ngrok. So let's see what's going on in ngrok all this time. So when you bring up ngrok, you can see the interaction between the Teams UI and the app that's running on my machine. So this is the first one here, API messages, and you can see that it's a compose extension query. That's what, you saw that a second ago, that's just what makes the compose extension show up. Let's go to the next one. Now this is fetch task. This is the invocation of the task module. And you can see here, if you go down to the bottom, that this is invoking the task module with the command company response and the command context of compose, etc. This is all defined by the app. And this is what the app returns. And this is what tells teams what to do next. Now here, you can see here what's being loaded from the web app. This is just a web app running on my local machine, so all that stuff gets loaded too. A lot of this stuff was in the cache already, so you see 304 not modified, etc. And you can see the resource strings as well. So now you actually can see what's going on with the task module. Let's see what happens in the code when you use a messaging extension in Teams. So on the right, I've got Teams, just as before, and on the left, I have Visual Studio. But in this case, I've set a few breakpoints. So let's see what happens. Okay, so notice that the event is captured, the breakpoint is hit in the canned responses activity handler. Now this is the activity handler for messaging extension events. That's how it's been wired up in the bot. And you can actually see the structure, the data structure of all the local variables. So you can actually see the query is called your responses, and you can see the activity. This is the raw bot framework event that you see, that we saw earlier in ngrok. It's a complicated data structure, as you can see. And you see on the right, Teams is timed out because we're messing around in the debugger, so that's what happens. So we're going to continue through this. It's going to hit another breakpoint, and we're going to try this again. So in this case, we're going to go right through the first breakpoint, so we hit the second one. In this case, the bot has actually gone to the database and retrieved some results. Now again, it's going to time out in Teams, but you can actually see the default query just as before, and in here, you can actually see the list of attachments. So at any rate, you can see everything that's going on here. Now I'm actually going to let this happen here. We're going to try something else. We're going to try the company responses tab. This is a different query. Notice that the query here is company responses. See, because that's actually how it's modeled, that the tab is actually one of the parameters in the query to the bot. Okay, so again, it's timing out on Teams. Do it again. Now I'm actually going to type in a query. So now you can see over here, you can see it's the query that I typed. That's exactly what I typed. And then you can actually see the list of things that the objects that are returned. And if I was to actually have continued in time, I would actually see this in the UI on the right. So now you know how messaging extensions work inside the code. Next, let's look at the Request a Team app template in action. First, let's set some context. Microsoft Teams obviously has a built-in way to create new teams, and this is the way most customers do it. However, some customers want to have more control over the team creation process and/or want to ensure that most teams are created based on a set of predefined templates controlled by IT. It's always been possible to turn off the ability for end users to create new teams, but once you do that, there needs to be a way for end users to request new teams, and there needs to be a way for IT or their delegates to process team creation requests. You can use an IT ticketing solution for this, but that doesn't make it any easier for ensuring that most teams are based on predefined templates. Request a Team is a Teams app for this scenario, and Contoso has recently deployed it and installed it in their tenant app catalog. Now that we've set the stage, here are the actors in our story. Adele Vance is a retail manager for Contoso, and she's been deputized by Contoso IT to process team creation requests for the sales and marketing departments. Isaiah Langer is a sales rep for Contoso. He wants to create a new team to collaborate with his coworkers at the Chicago store. Isaiah clicks on the ... menu on the left rail and notices the Request a Team app. Contoso could have also pre-pinned it to the left rail using App Setup Policy. He decides to use a template, and he fills out all the specified information. So he picks a template. He's going to pick Retail Store. He goes to the next phase. Then he goes to Privacy Settings. He wants this to be a private team. Now he's going to give it a team name. So now he has to check the availability. The team name is available. Great. So he clicks Next. Now he's going to start adding some names. We want to get this done quickly, so he's just going to add one person. Lynn Robbins. And he's going to skip the members, and he's going to be an owner himself. So there, he's looking at the summary of the information that he specified, and he says Submit. He gets a notice saying that it's been submitted for approval. Let's switch over to Adele's computer. Now, I mentioned earlier that Adele was one of the people that was deputized by Contoso IT to be able to approve Teams requests. There's a special team that's been created for this purpose, the Request a Team Admins team right here. And we're looking here at the General channel. You can see here that Flo has posted a message from the app, Isaiah Langer's request to create a team. Now, she can actually approve it or reject it right here, or she can actually click on the tab that was added when the app was added to the team, and she can actually click over to Approve Requests. Here's the pending approval that was triggered by Isaiah's submission, and she can look at the details, and she can say, okay, that looks good, I'm going to approve it. And then she can confirm the approval with a note. And there we go. And then we'll go on to the next step. Okay, some time has passed. Let's switch back over to Isaiah's computer, and you can see a couple things. The most interesting one is that the Chicago retail team is there. There's a general channel, a learning channel, and a shift handoff channel, and there's a message from the service account, which is the account that was creating the team in the Logic app, which we'll see shortly. And there you go. That is the Request a Team app. Now that you've seen the Request a Team app, let's see how it works behind the scenes. These are the building blocks of the Request a Team app. Of course, for the user interface, there's a Power App. For storage, it uses SharePoint lists. For App Logic, it uses a Logic app. It uses a number of Power Automate flows. And believe it or not, it actually uses something I had never seen before, but it's actually pretty cool, a PowerShell runbook. And last but not least, there's what I call the systems integration components, which handles things like authentication and knowing the API endpoints and the API surface and so forth for various subsystems. Let's walk through each of these. Of course, the process starts when the user fills out the information in the Power App. Next, remember the button that we pressed to see if the team name was available? That's actually powered by a flow called Check Team Availability. We'll take a look at it in more detail in a second. The successful requests are stored in a SharePoint list. along with the actual configuration data for the app overall. Next, there is the team request approval flow. And that's what detects that there's a new row in SharePoint. It switches it over to pending approval, and then it posts an adaptive card in the channel, the admin channel, using Flow. The request team admins approve or reject the request using the Power App or using the buttons on the adaptive card. The SharePoint list item state is updated. There's actually a logic app that is looking for changes in the SharePoint lists, and that's actually the heart of the process, the back-end process. It walks through a long script. I'll show it to you in more detail. It takes about 7 minutes to execute, and that's the process that actually checks for all the team's availability. Now, there's an interesting part in there, which is actually a PowerShell script. It's a Azure Automation runbook. And what that does is it checks to see if the team name is still available. And that's because the team could have been created with the same name in between when the request was made and when the request was being processed and the team's actually been created. So it has to actually check that twice. This is the Power App. It's your typical user interface-centric development tool. On the left here, you can see the various screens, the landing screen, the template, the user's personal requests. This is the connectors. This is what I was talking about earlier, the API logic. This is what connects it up with Office 365 groups. You can see the 3 SharePoint lists that are used for configuration and for the template requests or the team name requests, etc. These are the 2 flows. As I mentioned earlier, one of them is the flow that actually initiates the team request approval, and the other one is checks the team availability. Let's take a quick look at each of them. So let's look at the check team availability one first. So here's some of the properties, its run history, etc. So basically the first part is a bunch of variable definitions. The actual meat of it is actually calling the SharePoint API. It's calling the team app and looking for some information about whether the site URL exists. Then it parses the JSON that comes back from the Microsoft Graph call, from the SharePoint API call. And then it checks to see if whether the answer is true or false, and then it responds with the answer to the flow, with the result of the flow. This is the flow that initiates the team request approval. So the first step is when the team request is first submitted, it detects that state. And then it initializes a bunch of variables. And then it calls the settings. And as I mentioned, the settings are actually stored in a SharePoint list too, so that's how it's retrieved. It loops through the setting items. There's a switch statement. This actually controls some various app logic around, the team's app ID, whether it's upper, lowercase, that kind of thing. And then it loops through the members of the new team to be created, the owners of the new team to be created, and then it updates the status to pending approval. And then it checks to see if we're posting to teams. I haven't mentioned this before, but there's also a way for the notifications that this has been completed to be sent over email instead of via Teams. But at any rate, what this is really doing is populating the SharePoint list. And since we're talking about the SharePoint list, let's actually take a look at it. This is the SharePoint team site that is used to power the Request a Team app. And what you're seeing here is the list of requests. This should look familiar. This is the actual request that was stored when Isaiah made the request to create the Chicago retail team. But you can also see the team's templates. This is all the metadata for the team's template. And this is just the metadata for the app itself. And as I mentioned earlier, this is the heart of the backend logic. This is the logic app that actually creates the team. Okay, so here's what we're looking at here. So first of all, you can see the run history, which is pretty cool. You can actually run it right here. You can simulate the trigger action right here by saying when an item is created or modified. And something else that's interesting You can see the API connections. These are kind of like the connectors in a flow. You can kind of think of a logic app as a cross between a Power App and a flow, except without the UI, because of course it runs on Azure. Let's take a look at some of the logic in the logic app. This is the structure of the logic app. So at the top you can see it starts with when an item is created or modified. That's the trigger that actually kicks this thing off. It updates the status to team creation. That's the first thing it does. Because this script runs for a long time, and so if you look at the list in the meantime, you want to be able to have something that looks rational. So it initializes a bunch of variables. Then it gets the service account user profile. When you initialize this application, you create a service account so that you're not running with the context of a logged in admin user. This is where you check to see if the SharePoint site exists. Let's actually look at this real quick. This is what I was telling you about, the PowerShell. This is an Azure runbook. And if you look at what it is, and if you know anything about PowerShell, it'll look really familiar. It's basically just a PowerShell script that's run automatically on Azure, and it's checking to see if the site URL has already been used. Okay, back to the logic app. So if the site doesn't exist, it means it's okay to create it. That's what this logic does here. It then loops through the members and it loops through the owners, and it then calls Microsoft Graph for each of those and adds those to the newly created team. Actually, it doesn't add them to the team right away. It's actually creating an internal data structure to do that later. Here's where it creates the team. It checks the template type and the template operation and so forth. It sets some variables. And here's where it posts the message, the welcome message, to the general channel of the newly created team. It sends a new team created email if it's been configured to work that way, and then it updates the status in SharePoint to be team created. And that's it. So in just a few minutes, you've seen how a pretty interesting app has been stitched together using Power Apps and Logic Apps and Flow and also SharePoint. It's pretty cool. And I think it's one of the more interesting Teams app templates. That brings us to the end of our session today. Thank you for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed learning more about digital transformation and Teams app templates and a little bit more about how they work under the covers. On this page, you can see more information about where to find latest videos, our developer program, more learning, how to get certified as a developer, and more information about Microsoft 365 developer build news.